Hi, this is Mike with OPST, and we're going back to some tips and tricks. And it's trout season now, and you got your Micro Skagit. First thing you want to do, it's been sitting, most of the guys have been sitting all winter. Check your stuff out. First thing I recommend is if your laser line or your oval, pull the whole oval off or laser line, and then just run your fingers through it and check for nicks or grooves or kinks or any kind of defect that maybe you stepped on it or maybe it got caught on the bottom of your boat or any of that. If you find anything, cut it off there, do a new loop to loop. Do that now. It'll save you a lot of heartache if you get a really big fish and that nick cost you the fish. If it's way down into your mono, then I would recommend changing out your oval or your laser line. If it's halfway down even, most guys will just cut it and make a loop. We give you quite a bit of it on the spool, so there's extra to do that with that. Check that loop. Check your double surgeons here. Check your loop to loop connection to your Commando head. Work your way down. Feel your Commando head. Make sure same thing. That it didn't get chafed or caught in. A lot of guys have aluminum floors on drift boats. If it gets caught in the groove and it can shave your fly line, just check it. Make sure it all feels good. Check your loop to loop connection. Pull them loose. Like I said, super easy. Pull it back tight. Go back down here. Just feel all your sink tip. Check your loop here. If you have an old leader on here, a lot of them are still good. If it has some kinking or shaving or it's been scratched or nicked, same thing, replace it before you go out on a trip. That if you just have 3 feet of line that you're skipping out on, like this one for an example right here, it's got some chafing on it, and then on the actual nail knotted section it's got some chafing too. So before I go fishing, I'm going to take this off and put a whole new leader on, whether it's you want to do one of the short tapered leaders that are available now in the Skagit style, where 4.5 feet, somewhere along there, do that. Or if you just do your fluorocarbon and your 8 or 10 pound and same thing, around 4 feet loop to loop. Take this off and we're going to throw this away, add a new one. Once that's checked, if you decide that, hey, it's shot, I'm going to put some new laser line on. Pretty simple. Strip your old mono off. Again, if you're doing it that far, cut your knot on your backing just to be sure. Pull your backing. If your backing feels chalky or feels brittle or anything like that, take it in a shop, have them put new backing on. Backing's insurance. You don't think you're going to use it, but when you need it, you want it to work properly. So again, I'm going to put a new loop in. Simple. It's a double surgeon, so that's an overhand knot through the loop, and you're going to follow it back through again. And then you're just going to pull it evenly. Let that seat before you pull it all tight. Seats just like that. Super simple. You can do a triple. Ed loves triples. They're really, really good knots. Take a little more work to tie. Recommend that you have gloves when you tie them. So I don't do them because of that. I've done double surgeons my whole life, and I'm good with them. Then come to your laser line. Do the same thing. Make your loops. They don't have to be giant, but make them so that you can pass your reel through them, or you can pass the laser line spool through them. So it just saves you time and effort. There's no reason that it should be not passable on that. So same thing. You can adjust your loop size a little bit before pulling it tight. When you get to here on mono, always wet it and then pull it tight. And it's that simple. And then you're going to come back through here and you're going to cut these tag ends off nice and flush. You can have a tiny bit in there, but you don't want a big tag in. You don't want anything if you remember, this is going to come back through your guides if you go into your laser line out your head when you pull back through. So this is the back one, so this is when it goes into the backing. But still, if you got a big fish, you want to make sure that tag don't get hung up. And then it's as simple as loop to loop, and you can take either one of them and go through. Usually if I'm going to go laser line through, then I'm going to go through the spool of the reel, and if I'm going to go backing through, it's going to go through the laser line spool. But it's as simple as that, making a loop. And keep this close so you can see it. And when you pull it tight, the key to these knots, and mono's stiff versus your backing is not, so you kind of got to manipulate your mono to get it to lay right. Make sure it's even here though, and even here. You don't want it to be one side longer than the other, so it'll make your square knot lay in it well. And just pull it together like that. And then see how I kept my fingers, it's hard to see, but you want to keep that like that, so that's how your knot lays. If your knot comes over, and even if you do the loops backwards, it's fine, but if your knot lays over like this, which is common, so when you pull it tight, it makes that move there. This is a weak spot. So make sure you check that. Just push it over the mono like so. And again, I'm going to squeeze it like this. Make sure they're straight on both ends and pull it tight and form your square knot. That's simple as that. Then with this, just make sure, we've talked about this before, but make sure your mono comes off this laser line spool. So on this reel, it's off the bottom. Make sure it comes off the bottom here. So when you go this way to this way, you don't want this coming off the top, or you don't want it sideways or anything like that. This is a crucial element. And like I said, you can screw, if you do it wrong, you'll put a whole bunch of line twists in your mono. And this works for gear guys and everything. It's really crucial that you put your mono on the proper way. I'll reel this up here real quick just to give you a close-up idea. So when you go to reel on, you want it just like that. That way it goes off or on the same. So it's mimicking what it is here, so that the twist will stay the same. If you cross this up, you're basically creating another layer of twist in your line. So always have it like this. If you're by yourself, just make sure that this can roll on the floor between your feet. That doesn't matter. Just make sure it doesn't lay over on its side, and don't make sure it doesn't flip over. This is probably the worst if it comes off this way, because it's literally unspooling the completely opposite of what it is, but you still don't want to come off the top. You want to make sure that these come off the same way. And if you're for some reason different reel, or somebody's holding it differently, if it's coming on the top here, on the top, just make sure they're exactly the same and not opposite of each other. And then another question with you'll get to the Commando head now. So we've put on our laser line. We're ready to add the Commando. Same thing, another double surgeon's loop on the other side of the laser line. Make sure you wet it. We get questions a lot about what end goes to the front. When these are brand new out of the box, they come with the cheater. They come with, it says this end of the reel, so you know that this is the back of the line. But that's not on there when you're fishing. So there's two ways to do this. There's always a line ID. Some of the older lines, it'll be right here, and it'll tell you the grain weight. Other times it's going to be down in here, so you got about that far. This one is right here, so find that wherever that label is, this is the front of your head. This is the end that goes to the sing tip. And the other way, if you're just quick and you want to go through it quick and you're not paying attention, you don't want to try to find that, is the fat end forward. When you're doing it with a standard Commando Skagit style, your fat end goes forward on our lines. And it's that simple. So if you remember either one of those two, and then you'll just put this on. Like I said, this already got the tag. Reel that up. And then when you get to your sing tip, we have line IDs on our sing tips too. They're the opposite of these. So where this piece of chartreuse is on this line, your ID will be right on that area. If it's the full float or the mow tip where it's half and half, it's going to be on the green part. It'll have a line ID. That line ID matches up with this line ID. They go on the same side. And if it's a 12-foot tip, it'll have that color change. Same thing. That color change with the line ID loops to the head of your line. That's your two IDs will go right to each other. And that makes it easy. So when you go and you don't have to look around too much, you know what tip you got on. You can go to the back side right here, find your ID, know what head you got on, and then add tip it from there. But that's the easy way, is your line IDs match, and then on your Commando head, it's fat end forward. That'll make your life a lot more pleasant if you remember fat end forward, because then you don't have to search for the ID, because it's there on the fat side each time. We also offer these kits we've got them on our website. So there's 2 different ways to do it. There's the Commando Smooth. So if you do the Commando Smooth, you eliminate the laser line or the oval running line. This has a built-in running line. The advantage to this is if you're casting and stripping, which a lot of guys do for trout especially, is you'll twitch your fly back in and strip it real close to you. This you'll strip in smoothly all the way until you get to your tip. So that's the first loop-to-loop connection. So it'll be super smooth. You can pick it out, you can dump it back, and you don't have that clunk for the mono to your Commando head. That's the advantage of this, is it allows you to strip your flies in. If you're mousing or you're throwing a big dry fly with a floater, same thing. This is nice because it's easier to control. Running lines will take distance away from you a little bit. So if you're looking for like, I need to get out as far as I possibly can, that's where the laser line will come into advantage. And this is the same kit, same setup, same tips. The only change is you go to a Commando head and you go to a laser line or a mono or oval mono, and this will give you a little more distance. This also gives you the ability to fish scanned it style that we've talked about in other videos, because you can take these heads and flip them over if you want a little more delicate presentation, which is nice for throwing like a big salmon fly or a hopper during hopper season. And you don't want quite as big a clunk, you can flip these over. That's the advantage to this system. Like I said, distance, and you can flip the head over. So just depending on what you're doing is why you'll choose one or the other. There's no right or wrong. They both cast very well. They both fish very well. This is, like I said, this is a little more user-friendly in the smooth because it's all built in, and hence it's smooth. When you cast it out and you strip it in, if you strip the head into your guides, it's super smooth going through your guides, and it's much easier to catch those fish that are chasing your fly all the way to your feet, basically. So those are your 2 options. We have the kits on our website, and that's just an explanation of why you would want one or the other. Like you said, you can't go wrong if you have the Commando heads and you're like, well, I don't, that's good enough. That's absolutely good enough. But if you're on the fence between the 2, kind of decide what you're doing the most. And if it's a lot of throwing buggers and casting and twitching them back in, I would recommend the smooth. If it's mostly swinging and soft hackles and stuff like that, and I would do the Commando head with the laser line. And thanks for watching.